Hi, I'm Dalziel, and this will be a presentation from my Applied Management Practice module at Leeds Beckett. The following presentation will begin with a slide on the graduate market, where I will engage into some market statistics, general employer requirements and professional body requirements. This will then be followed by my self-assessment results, SWOT analysis, gap analysis and personal development plan, which will all later be revised, whilst also including slides of my objectives and how I went about trying to achieve them. In terms of the graduate market, and firstly some statistics that have been made by high flyers, for example in the recent report, there were some worrying facts and figures produced, such as the country's top employers recruited 3,700 fewer graduates in 2020 than had been expected at the start of the year, mainly due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which was the biggest mid-year cut in graduate vacancies since 2008, which was the start of the global financial crisis and recession, and the graph shows on the slide giving evidence to the drop in vacancies. This slide also states some general employer requirements which would be needed in a candidate to be successful when applying for a graduate role, consisting of commercial awareness, which means that by being aware of what is going on in the world, it can be beneficial in being successful. Communication and teamwork are also requirements made by general employers, which may include having the ability to produce a presentation in front of a group of people which would possibly require confidence, or working with other members of staff in a task, which requires a graduate to work well with others, which is usually a basic but more than necessary skill to maintain. You can also see that there are some accounting professional service requirements which may differ from the general employer requirements, and that it may be more specific depending on the particular role being applied for. For example, some jobs may ask for mathematical capability, with numeracy being a big part of the role, or the ability to understand Microsoft Excel if the job includes a more financial aspect. This slide looks at the profile of what I believe an ideal candidate is for a graduate job, no matter what sector, and the importance behind skills such as teamwork, whereby working as a team limits the amount of workload being put on an individual, whilst other people's ideas or viewpoints might become of help in a task. It also looks at the ability to work under pressure, which is a skill I believe required for a graduate role, in that a fast-paced environment will require candidates to work quickly in challenging circumstances. To help get closer to the ideal candidate and to identify my strengths and weaknesses, I completed various self-assessments, starting with my personality Belbin results, which shows that I'm a fairly strong implementer and coordinator, in that I turn concepts and plans into practical working procedures systematically and efficiently. My highest scoring category was the team worker, whereby I support members in their strengths and improve communication, which generally fosters team spirit. This would be a beneficial skill to possess in the workforce, as most graduate roles will require some form of activities with others, whether this being working with someone else on a task or actually taking control of a large group, where having the ability to listen to others whilst offering out my own ideas is crucial. My time management analysis table, which shows how I spend all of my time in a day in terms of what type of activities I take part in and how much time I spend doing these activities, whilst including what percentage of the day it uses up. For example, I spend 3 hours of my day doing timetable university work, while spending 2 hours a day on social media, but also an hour socialising. I also looked at the Johari window exercise, where the colleagues and friends that I questioned thought I was cheerful, friendly and a dependable character. And finally, the Myers-Briggs results showed an ESFP, which means I have a moderate preference for extroversion over introversion, with a slight preference over perceiving over judging. This slide engages into my personal SWOT analysis, which identified my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, which can be beneficial to a graduate when applying for a job in the future, and that it can suggest possible areas of improvement that may be needed, whilst also looking at areas that they are advantageous in. The opportunity section gives me an option to develop skills and competencies, such as the university being helpful for people trying to improve their communication or presentation skills, despite our students not attending actual university classes at the moment due to COVID-19. Personally, a weakness of mine is a lack of leadership, in that I am happy to sit back and let others take the lead, and that I would have certain inputs that may be of great use. However, the competence needs to improve, and sports teams are a possible way to improve a skill like this. In terms of the threat section, it highlights any factors that may get in the way of a graduate's development, such as getting distracted too easily, whether this be watching TV or on social media, or even meeting up with friends. And by distinguishing these factors, it can help a person develop and try to reduce these problems. This slide engages into my initial personal development plan, which I produced in March. The idea of a personal development plan is seen as a beneficial way of improving skills or competencies while setting SMART objectives as a way of making the goals attainable, realistic and measurable to keep track of any success or failures. My personal development plan analyses possible areas that could be worked on in the future, with a key problem of mine being a lack of organisation and time management and a need for improvement to help myself be successful in the business industry post-university. By setting goals such as a need for a leadership course when taking control of tasks or groups work, is personally important for me to develop my management skills. And finally, a need for experience is seen as essential when applying for a graduate job. And by gaining this experience in marketing, sales or accounting and improving my CV, this can be effective in becoming more employable in the future. My initial gap analysis that I made in March was effective for my personal development, since I could identify my starting point of my current state, for example with my poor leadership, weak analytical skills and IT skills. It also gave me the opportunity to identify my desired state of a better understanding of Excel for example, whilst my action plan enables me to plan out how I will achieve these goals. The first objective involves looking at improving the organisation and time management skills, and shown in this slide is evidence of this being improved through the notes being made in lectures and seminars. This was very beneficial in that it meant I could come back and use the notes I had previously made, and the fact they were all kept inside the same book rather than random sheets all over the place, it made it much easier to follow, with every book being different depending on the module I was studying. The second goal of mine was to improve my leadership skills in teamwork exercises, which I found a very useful objective to set, in that it helps me with my confidence and communication skills massively due to working in a group with students that I hadn't met before, as shown in the evidence on the slide. This was a group assignment where I occasionally took the lead in developing a company in the automotive industry, giving opinions and ideas to others in the seminar. I learned that by taking the lead when needed, it meant tasks can get done a lot easier rather than individually, especially if there is a sense of reliability within the group to do your part. It gives reflective cycles and effective modelling, examining experiences, allowing us to learn from events in a way that covers the 6 stages of description, where it should be simply describe what happened when trying to achieve an objective, which then follows on to feelings, where emotions should be communicated, and in my example was the uncertainty of not knowing my group members for an assignment. It should then be evaluated and analysed, with a conclusion and action plan offering an opportunity to consider what should have been done differently. As it says on the slide, if it was pre-COVID, we'd been able to meet up in person and it probably would have been a lot easier. My third goal for my personal development plan was to improve IT skills through Excel, for example, which is a skill hugely beneficial in the future, with modern society using technology and Microsoft software in most businesses. Therefore, by using pivot tables, as it shows on the slide, to help with my development, it can give me an advantage when summarising data in the future. My final objective was to simply gain work experience in a sector that I'm interested in, which, even though this goal was to be achieved by the end of summer 2021, I had been accepted to work for a company in a 6-week sales programme between July and August. This was at times stressful but a beneficial process, in that I learnt that it's crucial to make yourself as competitive as possible and to try to make my CV stand out from the rest, and when meeting in person, act confident and appealing to the employer. Hopefully, by working with successful business people, this will help me in the future and give me an insight of what it takes to be successful in the business industry. The reflection or summary of my development plan is shown here and gives evidence to key dates within my process of development, which is crucial when analysing how successful the objective was and whether or not I met the deadlines. It also shows what I did in each goal, such as adding a pivot table to an Excel spreadsheet I'd previously used and why I did this. In terms of the what did you learn column, this is effective in understanding what the benefits were from setting these goals and how I will use them in the future to give myself an advantage. This slide looks at my revised SWOT analysis, which is quite similar to my initial grid, with a lot of the strengths being the same, such as resilience and hard work, which I benefited from for a while. I've also added leadership, organisation and IT skills to my strengths box, since I have developed these skills through the objectives I set back in March. In terms of the weaknesses, I have kept analytical skills and the ability to work under pressure, because I have yet to improve these issues. And whilst I have IT skills such as PowerPoint in my strengths, I still have some weaknesses within the Excel that still need developing. I have included the job in the summer as an opportunity to work on my skills, such as working under pressure, whilst I've also included social media as a threat to these skills, with me getting distracted too easy being an issue. The revised gap analysis in this slide again looks at my desired state of where I want my skills to be and objectives to be in the future, in comparison to my current state of where I feel I am at the moment, and finally looking at the action plan of what I'll be trying to do to achieve that desired state. For example, hopefully join a football team where I can try to improve my leadership skills, for example, further with the hope that this will benefit me academically as well. Finally, my revised development plan, where I will look at developing some of the same objectives in the future, such as my Microsoft Excel goal, where I'll look to use the form of Excel called VLOOKUP to help widen my IT development. This revised PDP will also include new objectives, such as my aim to get distracted less when completing work, which even though I've been currently better at recently, by leaving my phone downstairs for example, it still needs improving. I also want to become more physically active in the future with an aim to improve my health and well-being over summer before I restart university in September. This will all hopefully help me get closer to the ideal candidate for a graduate role.